Media lied to you again. The Montreal shooter was not just a incel. His own manifesto shows something much darker. Revolutionary Marxist ideas, antisemitic rhetoric, anti-capitalist obsession, and a call for political violence to create what he imagined as a new social order. Here is what the media is not telling you. I'm Alex Alavoie for Rebel News, and on June 22, Montreal became the scene of a horrific terrorist attack. 25 years old Seth Scott Hatfield traveled from Lethbridge, Alberta to Montreal. He rented a room at the Hilton in Côte-des-Neiges, a location that appears to have been carefully chosen close to the scene of the crime, Montreal's Triangle District, an area with a significant Jewish population, and also where Halo, the company behind Pornhub, has its headquarters. See, in his manifesto, Hatfield identified pornography companies and so-called Zionist elites as potential targets. Police have not publicly confirmed a motive, but the manifesto and the attack location suggest the area may not have been chosen at random. According to what we know so far, a resident noticed a man pointing a long gun and called the police. Within minutes, officers arrived. That is when Hatfield allegedly opened fire and multiple lives were lost as a result. Constable Mohammed Lamin Ben Redouane killed in the line of duty. Another female officer critically injured. An innocent civilian, Michel Mizrazi, also gone. Hatfield, too, was neutralized during the police intervention. We want to extend our deepest condolences to the families, friends, and colleagues of every innocent victim affected by this tragedy. But shortly after the shooting, another story began unfolding. We learned that a 104-page manifesto, allegedly written by Hatfield before the attack, had been sent to only a handful of mainstream media outlets. CBC received a copy, and TVA appears to have received one as well. Rebel News did not. So we tracked down a copy ourselves, and my colleague Sheila Gunn-Reid was able to break the real story, proving the dishonest coverage of the legacy media. Now, I have read the entire manifesto, so you don't have to. Because while most outlets described Hatfield as an incel and anti-woman, his disturbing and misogynistic obsession with women and romantic rejection goes beyond that. The document is also saturated with revolutionary political theory, anti-capitalist rhetoric, antisemitic conspiracy theories, and open calls for violence and murder. Hatfield repeatedly references the Communist Manifesto and recommends that readers study revolutionary figures including Robespierre, Saint-Just, Babeuf, Marx, Lenin, Stalin, and Mao, and more. And one of the most revealing lines in the entire document is this. Hatfield wrote that the influence of Zionist Jews upon the Western bourgeoisie is so strong that he sometimes refers as the Judeo-bourgeois class. That is the ideological bridge. It takes Marxist language about the bourgeoisie, the ruling capitalist class, and fuse it with an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory about Jewish and Zionist power. So in Hatfield's worldview, the enemy is not just capitalism, it's capitalism allegedly controlled by Jews and Zionists. This is a central theme within the manifesto, and it's why the incel label is not enough. Hatfield takes romantic failure and turns it into revolutionary politics. He claims capitalism created what he calls the hypergamy state, a society where wealth, consumerism, pornography, social media, and modern culture make women increasingly selective. He then reframes Marx's class struggle, except it's not just bourgeoisie versus proletariat, but favored male versus dispossessed male. The favored males are the winners. The man he believes gets the women, the money, the status, and the power. The dispossessed males are the losers. The men he believes have been shut out of love, relationships, and social success. And from there, his ideology turns radical and violent. The dispossessed become the oppressed class. And the enemy becomes the capitalist elite, pornography companies, politicians, bankers, so-called Zionist elites, police, and anyone he believes protects the system. It's beyond an anti-woman rant, more than just a manifesto. To me, it reads more like a manual, more like recruitment. And this is where the media is not properly informing the public, because women are not the central targets on his list. Hatfield wanted to spread this ideology to influence men, push them into what he calls biological consciousness, and make them more sympathetic to his cause. Hatfield himself writes, "Women, though their behavior can be very hurtful, are generally not at fault for things, nor are most of their male partners. So yes, the misogyny is there, but women were not his main target." By the end of the document becomes something even more disturbing, a blueprint for a revolutionary army, one meant to spread terror, first in Canada and eventually across the world. He writes, "For the first time in a very long while, the Western bourgeois class will finally know true fear again." Then comes the enemy list: real estate developers, major investment firms, elite bankers, liberal and conservative politicians, pornography companies, private health insurance executives, business leaders he accuses of exploiting mass immigration for cheap labor, cryptocurrency promoters, plastic surgeons, environmental profiteers, influential Zionists, and even the so-called swindlers, alpha male influencers, muscle building gurus, diet promoters, financial influencers, and religious figure he accuses of selling false hope to struggling men. Hatfield basically lays out an authoritarian revolutionary new order. He calls for abolishing private property without compensation, nationalizing the economy, and giving the state control over finance, transportation, and communications. He claims this would destroy the bourgeois class he blames for capitalism, consumerism, and the oppression of what he calls dispossessed men. He also wrote that the way to force women into monogamous relationships is to get the female out of the workplace and to stop her from having her own income. Then he suggests replacing women's jobs with robots, while also enforcing equal salaries in order to prevent certain men from gaining more wealth, status, and power than others. In his closing message, Hatfield directly addresses the dispossessed men. He sympathizes with them, telling them he understands their loneliness and rejection. He portrays them as victims of a capitalist system that, in his view, murdered their chances at love, family, and a meaningful life before they were even born. Then, in the final pages, he sounds like a leader of a revolutionary death cult. He urges followers to rise from the pestilent graves, to hold high the banner of our unflinching rebellion, and to arm yourselves. And he ends with the chilling line, "Be unflinching, go forth, and kill them all." So let's call this what it is. This was not just an incel manifesto. It was not just misogyny. It was a revolutionary, anti-capitalist, antisemitic manifesto that boils down to a domestic terrorist recruitment document. And yet, much of the media reduce it to a simple label, incel. And outlets like Cult Montreal, which received thousands of dollars in taxpayer funding, tried to convince people this man was somehow a conservative, but that's factually incorrect. This is why you deserve to know the full story and have access to the information for yourself, because the mainstream media continues to hide and pervert the truth. I'm Alexa Lavoie for Rebel News, and thank you for watching. We don't receive any money from the government, so if you can, go over rebelfieldreports.com. Chip in what you can. We need your help because it's because of you we can actually continue our work on the ground. So I repeat, rebelfieldreports.com, and please chip in, and thank you in advance.